What's up, Darren?
Marty,
D. Smith Show. Look at you.
how are you doing?
I am doing great. It's great to see you. I wanted to make sure that before you and I talked that I was the last podcast or whatever or YouTube show that you joined. And I think you've made the rounds now. So I'm like, listen, it's a slow news cycle in Padres world or in San Diego world. What a perfect time to finally reconnect. How are you, man?
I'm all right. Yeah, I mean, it's a new year. So, making my way around a little bit, seeing what's what. You get a bunch of different invitations to do things, and it was pretty radio silent for a while. So, not a lot to say. And I think the timing of this is listen, obviously what's happening in San Diego or Southern California at this point is a bit coincidental, but I think this is long overdue. I think this is probably long overdue for you and me, but yeah, it's good to see you. It's good to chat with you. How's things? How's life?
Things are interesting right now. If you hear any lightsabers in the background, in order to go ahead and bribe August, my nephew, to be quiet, I let him, he's watching The Rise of Skywalker. So you might hear occasional, who's Kylo Ren? Who's this and that? So anyways.
I thought maybe Jim Russell was over at the house.
That would be kind of strange if he were.
He's the only dork that I know that actually owns a lightsaber.
We have 5 here. We have 5 in my residence.
Well, the only adult that I know who owns a lightsaber. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, forgive me. Like I just got a new laptop, and I thought
PC.
my microphone was going to work.
You finally broke down. And got a PC.
I did not. I'm in the Mac cult for life. So I thought my microphone was going to work. So hopefully the audio's okay and the video's okay, and things are making noises, and I can see that emails are popping up. So work in progress. Apologies for my my continued technological deficiencies.
No, all good. Hey, Darren, listen, I want to get to, you and I never get a chance to really address our phenomenal listeners that we've had since the days of the Mighty 1090, XX 1090, gosh, back to the new Mighty 1090, right? Back to 760. And we'll do that later on. I do want, because that's important. And there is never a good way to go ahead and do it. And we'll talk. I mean, we've heard from all of your listeners. We love you guys. You mean a lot. We heard a lot. I know we've both heard from a lot of them, especially when there's significant news, when there's the playoffs, and especially what's happening right now. And I do kind of want to start there because I just think that this is incredible. And I'm not going to, I know you don't want props on this, Darren, but I think like last year when we were talking, when Peter died in November, we're talking like free agency, who the Padres are going to go after, payroll. And I remember you saying to me, probably off air, people are missing the bigger picture because there's something else happening behind the scenes. And I think then you were talking to me about the fact of Padres ownership. Who owns this team? And the idea that they could be sold. I mean, you talked about this over a year ago. So I know you're not looking to go ahead and take victory laps, but is any of what's happening right now surprising to you?
Sorry.
You're muted, rookie.
My bad. That was me. Going right into the deep end of the pool, huh?
Yeah, I am. And I want to get back to it, but I am going to go right into it.
And I think, I'm sure a lot of people probably think that, you and I doing this today is probably, in part because of the events of the week. And, maybe it plays a smaller role than people might realize. But, I think it's sad to see a family back and forth publicly like this has become. I think from that standpoint, I think that's probably the part that I didn't expect. I thought that, I didn't think things don't normally go very smoothly, especially when you're dealing with professional sports clubs and you have this type of seismic change that the Padres had last November. I don't know that I expected to see different factions of the Seidler family, of the brothers Seidler versus Sheila. And I think, that part just makes me sad.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's, because it just, it reminds me of, how much I really appreciated the time that we got to spend as a community, right? As a city, as a fan base with Peter. You and I are not alone, but, we had a terrific relationship with Peter before he became the chairperson of the Padres. Yeah. That all of that just I think it's sad more than anything else. There's a range of emotions. There's room for people to be concerned, and there's room for people to be upset, and there's room for people to be, fill in the blank on whatever it is, nostalgic, worried. But, I think more than anything else, thinking about this family going through this very publicly, as they have, thinking about Peter's children and, what he's meant. I hate everything about it. I hate everything about it. And, I guess, the other thing I think about a little bit is, is this something new, or is this just an extension of, something that really took root right after Peter's passing? I know I'm on record, not that you can go back and find our radio shows, but, having said throughout the summer of 2023, like I was uncomfortable with people talking about Peter's legacy, and saying things about Peter's legacy while acting in a way that I don't know, would have been how Peter would have defined his own legacy. And, it feels like this is sort of an extension of that, but, obviously it's just been ratcheted up to a level that is absolutely brutal for everybody involved.
Are you at all surprised? I mean, I listen, the only Seidlers that we knew Peter, of course. He was great to us, great to our radio show, great to the San Diego, right? We had the opening day tradition, which his brother Tom took part of with us on one of our shows back in April. We know Sheila. Both of you and I met Sheila. She's fantastic. Love her, right? Of course, we know Tom. I am not aware of anything else with the brothers. And the thing that there's a lot that was surprising in the lawsuit. Okay, the racism claims, the fact that she didn't have money to buy a home, that she's been told to stay away from Petco Park. Last time I saw her was during the playoffs, right? I thought it was going to go a lot longer. I don't know if there's any one thing that surprises me. I think all of it surprises me. I don't know if we're ever going to know what sort of true succession plan that Peter left for the San Diego Padres. And I'll tell you this, because you're right, every family is different. And especially when it's a $1 billion family, $1 billion business. I think a lot of times when someone knows that maybe the end, that they may not be there as long as they want, they will take care of their family, right? I think it's pretty normal to go ahead and take care of your wife and your kids. And he loved Sheila. I mean, I love seeing those two together at Petco Park, walking around hand in hand and saying hi to all the players and shaking hands with Manny or Fernando, whatever else. I would find it a little bit strange that what they wrote about that Peter wanted her to have no part of it. If you believe that they wanted his wife to have no part of it. He was on the record so many times that he wanted it to pass through generations through his family. And when I would hear him say that, I would think his wife and his kids. And of course, it can mean everything because he had, 8 siblings? So, I mean, is it surprising at all that we're hearing the sort of feedback from the brothers that we heard in what they put out there yesterday?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly surprising because these aren't people that anybody even knew existed.
No.
A couple of days ago.
I knew one brother. One. That's it.
I knew Tom. And that's the only brother that I know. And, just because you and I are sitting here doing this on whatever day it is, Wednesday afternoon.
Sure, Wednesday.
We're not alone. We're not alone in that. When the story broke that John Seidler was going to be the control person for the Padres, out of habit, I mean, I'm not involved. I'm not currently working for a company where I have to, talk about this stuff. But out of habit, I kind of said, "Hey, who's John?" To people who do work there or who have worked there, and everybody shrugged. Everybody's like, "Wait a second, we don't know who this person is either." So it's not just us. What I know or what you know is mostly immaterial to the situation at hand. It's just our own personal viewpoint of it. But when you ask, it's like, I don't know, I don't know, like, I don't know who this is, I'm not quite sure. I'm not familiar with this person. This person didn't come into the owner's suite or come into the general manager's suite. This person wasn't somebody who we would see with a relationship with players. This isn't somebody that we would down there on the field before games or after games or what have you. These aren't people. These are kind of names that I think, even those that were working there that spent countless hours with Peter, would tell you, like, you got me, man. Like, you got me. I'm not clear who John is. I'm not clear who Matt is or Bob or whatever, or whomever these people are. Now, those are just like the viewpoints of a handful of people, but
But those are people who run the ball club every single day, single day. And you know me, Darren, I couldn't miss
Peter than anybody.
I couldn't miss a press conference, right?
Kind of go like, yeah, you got me here. I got nothing on this. I don't really, I don't. And it's not like anybody's saying something to me at this point because they're worried that I'm going to go flap my gums on a radio show. You know what I mean? Like people are saying this to me, not even knowing that I'm even doing anything on social media or hanging out with you here on YouTube. So, I think that's a bit alarming from where I sit because, I know what I know, and what I know is what a lot of fans know, which is that we would see Peter and riding shotgun oftentimes with Sheila. And, the two of them, you would see them at different sporting events. And the two of them, you would see that they would travel. And the two of them, when I the first time I ever met Peter Seidler, I met Peter and Sheila. And there were times, without going into too much detail, where, where Peter, Sheila, and I would have a conversation, not about, just about whatever. But again, this isn't a courtroom. So, this isn't me trying to try something in a court of law. But, the point I'm trying to make is, it's hard for me, and at least in other people's experiences and other people's viewpoints, people that spend a lot of time around Petco Park, people who were employed, people who have parking spaces at Petco Park, when they start saying, yeah, I don't know, like these people were not really around. They weren't around when we were at our lowest. They weren't around when we were at our highest. Like they just weren't around.
Right.
So from that standpoint, again, without knowing how the trust works, without knowing how how Peter's wishes were explained in great detail, like it just really strikes me as odd that you had these people sort of swooping in now who seem to be unknowns, not only for us but for a lot of other people who spent a ton of time, countless hours. These people are nocturnal, right? Like y'all knew Peter and AJ Preller specifically were up all night doing things. And it wasn't just them. They would bring other people into those conversations. And, it was a long time. It was a lot of time for some of these people to at least be, to be introduced, and not many of them were. So I don't know what to tell you. And now, like the youngest brother of all the brothers, again, I'm an only child, so I don't understand these dynamics. And this is probably me just reaching for something. Like now the younger brother, like the youngest brother is the one who's being tasked with all this sort of stuff. I don't know. I mean, the whole thing just stinks.
It does. No, it does. There's never, no matter what happens, to me, irreparable damage has been done. And maybe they'll fix it up. Maybe they won't, but these things often get ugly, Darren. I'm losing my train of thought. Sorry about that. I think another thing from Sheila, I don't know that I bought into the whole, hey, they might want to relocate. But she put it out there that they were looking to sell some interest of that team. Do you think there's anything to that? And I know the owners love everything to be unanimous, right? When they approve a new new owner, it has to be unanimous. Do you think this is going to cause a problem with John, with him being confirmed?
Well, I think that's the reason why the lawsuit came out when it did.
Okay.
I don't think that the timing was it just so happened to be on January 6th, that Sheila was ready to go with this lawsuit. I think what happened was, I think it's pretty clear to everybody through the reporting or just through common sense that the next time that the MLB owners get together, on the agenda is going to be voting for the control person of the San Diego Padres. Now, whether or not filing a lawsuit does enough to delay that, I don't know. I mean, I don't know the way MLB works. It can make a lot of this stuff up below as it goes, and I don't know. But I would suspect that even the timing of the lawsuit probably was an attempt to say, hey, like we would like for this not to happen. Now, you also can't really go into a season without a control person, and that's a lot that has to happen in a short amount of time. It's January. What do pitchers and catchers report, like in a month? So
yes.
It's not like you have some infinite amount of time where you can square this stuff all the way. And yeah, like these things do take years. Sales take years, court cases take years. But, I think what was being done there, I think, again, this is just me, part of the timing of it was, hey, what we would like to do is figure out a way that we can try to prevent this from happening, or at least alert the world to the fact that, what it is that is going to happen here isn't necessarily, according to Sheila Seidler, the way that she thought or she and Peter thought that things should be done. Like, what can I try to do to prevent this from happening? So, this is why what we're going to do is we're going to put this lawsuit out. And, listen, obviously everybody knows the timing stinks.
Yeah.
Even if you're just, thinking about it singularly through the lens of Roki Sasaki, like the timing sucks.
Brutal.
So,
brutal.
But, I think that the more important point is here, what you're, that's a detail, and the bigger picture is much more than whether you can land Roki Sasaki. I mean, I'm sure it's out there from somebody like, oh, why does it have to happen now when we're right in the middle of the Roki Sasaki? Like, it has to happen now, because if you don't do it now, and it might not matter, but then you run the risk that this thing will move forward, and this brother John, right? John will be the control person, yes, because MLB is to vote for this the next time that they convene. So again, however the law works, however it works with MLB, however it works in trust situations is like way out of my depth, man. But I do think like that's probably a big reason why the stuff went down as when it did, right? Does that make sense?
No, it does. The timing is everything, because you're right. It's there's a very specific calendar ahead. I know everyone's waiting for the posting date, the official posting date for Roki Sasaki, pitchers and catchers, fan fest, spring training, all that stuff. But you have specific agendas coming up in the owners' meetings. Are you there? Okay. You mentioned that people not knowing, like, who are these guys, right? Like, we saw Sheila. I was familiar with Sheila because I was introduced to her through Peter. Of course, we know Tom. We've met Tom several times. He's in community relations. Seems like a great guy. So I don't know the brothers. Maybe they were there and I just didn't know them. But you're mentioning that people who work for the Padres at all levels had no idea who they were. They know who Sheila is. They know those beautiful kids. They're all the time, right? You see them, with the players, hanging out with Manny, with Toddy, with Jackson Merrill, whatever else. And it's awesome to see. Do you think that Sheila would have had? Is there internal support, do you think, for Sheila, or is that just something, just based on what you talked to people? I
mean, like, are you asking, like, is it Sheila or John Seidler?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing. I would just be speculating, but I think that people 1,000% believe that Sheila was in this with them, right? Sheila was in this with them, and that, like I said, Sheila would visit people in different departments. Now, these are just stories that I heard. If anybody else has heard that all these other brothers were doing the same sort of thing, by all means,
we just didn't know it. Right.
Yeah, feel free to say, enter that into the conversation. But anything that I've heard about, John or Matt or any of these other dudes is sort of after the fact. Nobody knew about this stuff in real time, right? And maybe nobody thought to ask. But we knew Sheila, like we know her. Like you said, she's, she certainly was, I mean, one of the things that I love most was, down the stretch, August, September, October, was seeing Sheila really put herself out there a little bit on social media, and like, it was a bit different. And I really loved that about her, because I felt like what was being channeled there was an extension of Peter. Mm-hmm. And I really, really love that. As a matter of fact, I went on the Emo Brown podcast, and they do a segment where it's like, hey, what's good? And I remember saying during the playoffs, I was like, what's good is Sheila Seidler. Sheila Seidler being out there and making sure that everybody sees that the Seidler family, is still with us, right? And you can wear all the patches you want and all that sort of stuff, and it's all great. But to see that Sheila was out there and she was involved, and she was engaging on social media, and she was doing the LFGSD thing. Like, yeah. Really enjoyed that. Like, I really enjoyed that seeing her, because I really did sort of feel like it channeled the the spirit of Peter. A down
to earth community sense, more than
anybody else could have, right? Like, there could have been a John Seidler account out there that was like, hey, LFGSD, and we'd be like, oh, there isn't. I never knew about this, but whatever. But knowing, like, every picture like that you posted, every picture that you can find, you can find countless pictures of the World Baseball Classic at Petco Park, at different charity events around town, and it's Peter and it's Sheila, and like, hey, man, that's that to me is my image of this, like it's not one without the other. And so it's really, really hard for me to think all of a sudden then that one was just going to be completely cast off to the side in this situation. But, maybe there's some legalese there that I'm just not qualified to discuss. And like there's details here. I can see it. If you wanted Sheila in control, but like there's also some MLB rules that everybody's not butched up on 100% either about how a spouse just can't assume such a thing. And I don't think it's uncommon for people to be the executors of trusts who aren't, the direct recipient. So again, this isn't stuff I'm qualified to talk about, but
we need Michael McCann. In a previous day, we literally need like a trust attorney to be on to speak on this, but right now we don't know what he wanted. We don't know what that.
By the way, like if you actually read some of the details on it, all right, correct me if I'm wrong here. It doesn't say anywhere that I'm seeing, other than through the words of the brothers, that she couldn't be elevated to that position. It just said it was up to somebody else. It was up to the executor of the will. So now it becomes very much word against word, right? So a brother ends up becoming the executor of the will because the other brother apparently was unwell. There's another brother who was supposed to be the executor and he was unwell. So it gets passed off to the youngest brother of 10 siblings. Crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So, the youngest brother, now if I read this right, it's up to him to decide this stuff. It's not like he is in charge of reading these details and then relaying these details to everybody else. Like it's sort of up to them to decide how things are going to unfold. And how do you arrive at that conclusion? I don't know. Like can you explain? He just says it's like, well, this is what Peter told us. Okay, well. I don't know. I mean, everything that I've experienced with seeing Peter and Sheila around Petco Park and never seeing any of these other people, that surprises me. That just surprises me.
I'm also surprised that I don't know that this was brought up a year ago when we were having these discussions on the air in spring training. Who's in charge? The only name that we heard about was Eric Katsenda, right? I don't know that we had behind the scenes chatter about John, Matt, the other 8 siblings that they could be next in line. Darren, how ugly do you think this is going to get? And do you think this makes it more likely? I mean, it's ugly. It's ugly enough already. Those details were terrible to go ahead and read some of the back and forth, especially from Sheila. But how do you think this is going to just expedite the fact that the team could be sold? I know you've brought that up even when Peter was not well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was probably, where I figured it was the most likely destination. And after Peter's passing, I felt all along like that was probably the most likely thing that would happen. I don't know that I've changed all that much. So, I think that that's probably still where this is all heading. But now it's like, I just can't imagine that Major League Baseball is going to sit around here and let the Seidlers work this out. Like MLB's probably going to get involved in some capacity. So is my Wi-Fi not good? Is that what you're frowning at? Where's my Wi-Fi?
Was I frowning? Was I making a face?
Oh,
Darren, I make faces. I just do that. No,
terrible poker player. Yeah. I mean, I still think that's probably the most likely thing. I don't know that that's something necessarily that I would want to see, but I also think it's like way early to even know. I mean, I think anybody who's ever experienced any sort of loss in life, right? There's this phrase out there. There's a version of this phrase that, death brings out the best in a lot of people. And sometimes, death and tragedy brings out the worst in a lot of people. And, would I completely rule out that this is, bringing out the worsts in some of these people? It feels like it's kind of a hard thing to ignore, that this isn't bringing out the worst in somebody. Would I swear to my grave, that it's one side versus the other? I wouldn't, but I certainly know what my instincts tell me based on years of experience of being around it and based on being around people who have been in it way deeper than I've been. And, my instincts are not perfect, right? I mean, if my instincts were perfect, I'd probably be employed, but I just feel like that's kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's just hard for me to see it another way. You're going to have to do a lot more to convince me that the brothers' interpretation of these events is the way Peter wanted it compared to the version of events that I believe Sheila. And, like I said, Peter and Sheila have always, it's not, I mean, I'm not going to overdo it here and claim that I knew them, and spent holidays with them and went to their house and all that sort of stuff. But, we had a relationship.
Yeah.
Like we did, like we had a relationship, and it wasn't just about baseball. It wasn't just like, hey, like what's the payroll going to be? Or can you come on the show? There were things that were said, and there were things that whether it was Mighty 1090 going out of business in 2019. I mean, like both people reached out. Whether it was more recently, like, I mean, I've not connected full transparency with Sheila since October, since the postseason. But like there were things that I can't, that mean a ton to me personally, that I feel the Seidler family, Peter, Sheila, and Tom, probably to a lesser extent, that feels very sincere and very real. But again, everybody deals with tragedy in different ways and loss in different ways. And I know for a lot of people, even saying the thing that was said about the relocation stuff, maybe in some people's interpretation, that undermines the credibility of what it is that Sheila is saying. I mean, I guess I'd have to go back and read it in greater detail. I mean, was she saying like, the brother that posted on Peter Seidler Trust or whatever it was,
right?
Said we would never move it out of San Diego. And I was like, well, listen, I'm not the only person who ever heard somebody around Petco Park go, if this thing were actually like a little further up towards North County, then we can bring in people from Carlsbad and Oceanside and all that sort of stuff. So, I don't know, maybe that's something that gets kicked around in a very casual way. And it's, it's used in a situation like this to try to, exacerbate a point. I don't know that anybody would want to rip Petco, the Padres out of Petco Park or out of downtown.
Right.
So,
right.
But, I mean, I think, part of this also for me, like, let's open up the umbrella a little wider. One of the things that I objected to when I was still on the radio, and one of the things that I said the other day, because, I did a podcast with our former colleague, John Gennaro, is, I'm just tired of, everybody telling me that like this was always the plan, that this was always the plan to cut $100 million from the payroll in 2023 and to cut payroll from 2024 and then 2025. And, the idea that Peter wanted some middle of the road payroll for the San Diego Padres, to me, is 100% bullshit. That is just 100% bullshit. And that is something that I feel like I could say definitively. I don't think that was ever part of the plan. I think that Peter was probably more sensitive than people realized about how he was interpreted by other owners. Peter wanted to be a good fellow owner. I don't think he loved the idea that like other fans and media were pointing at the owners of I don't know. I mean, the Pittsburgh Pirates and being like, hey, that asshole over there, he isn't spending any money. And look at the Padres. Look at what the Padres are doing. And, our worthless owner isn't doing squat. I don't feel like that. I mean, I feel very safe in saying Peter did not like that. And that was not an intended consequence of his spending. But as much as it was a priority for Peter and as much as he desired to want to be a good owner in the eyes of his other owners, the other priority and the more important priority was winning a championship in San Diego, and maybe there was some sort of, I'm sure there was an internal conversation about, hey, maybe we need to throttle back just a little bit on the spending, and it didn't work. And, the luxury tax. But as I knew it, Peter would always say things like, just bring it to me. And if it works, if we can make it work and you feel passionately about it and you can convince me, then I'll do it. So, I don't know that Peter ever, I mean, go ahead, put somebody on the record, Kevin Acey, like put somebody on the record and find somebody or where did Peter Seidler ever say that his goal was to have some middle of the road payroll in Major League Baseball? I mean, I don't believe that. I think that stuff is bullshit. And, I feel very, very secure and safe in saying that. And, I think that's, by extension, part of this conversation. But, it's probably, something that is related to, the matter at hand, because I think it was part of it. I mean, I just don't think that was ever part of Peter's plan, was that he was just going to go back to having the 15th best payroll or highest payroll in Major League Baseball. Do you believe that? I don't believe that.
No, you don't do, especially right now with the contracts that you do have in place. You want to go, this is the time right now with where Manny's at in his contract, with his age, Tatis, what you do have right now. There's no way I believe it. And I would, what would you think of right now? It's January 8th and the Padres haven't spent any money this offseason. We're not even talking about profile.
Again, I mean, people can go back and forth on like the Soto trade, right? It's a great example of it all. And I thought AJ did a brilliant job. He played the hand that he was dealt, but he had to figure out a way to make that work. And they said, hey, it was almost, you can go find it somewhere. It was written where I think it was AC who wrote that he was forced to trade Juan Soto, and he did a good job of that. But I can also tell you, that there were he didn't want to do it. They didn't bring him in here to sell him for 70 cents on the dollar. Like, that was not the plan. This wasn't one of those situations where it's like Giancarlo Stanton signing with the Marlins just so you can trade it. Like, it wasn't what they were doing there, and I give Preller a ton of credit because he really did make the most out of that. And, now he's faced in a similar situation where he might have to do stuff again. But like, I don't think that was part of their plan. Like that, you're telling me they're going to go around, putting $400 million contracts in front of Aaron Judge, and they're going to put a $350 million contract in front of Trey Turner, and they have $280 million or whatever it was for Xander Bogaerts. And then they extend Manny for $350 million. And then the next step in that plan was like, oh, but now we got to cut it back. Now we got to cut all this stuff back. Like, I don't know. I mean, I just think logically that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I don't think anybody could disagree with that. And again, I just don't think that's how Peter was wired. Like, my understanding was always like, Peter's like, hey, like, I understand the spigot can't be on forever, but they weren't just going to shut the thing completely off. And he always, that's the way I understand. Like, bring it to me. I'm not saying yes. I'm not always going to say yes, but bring it to me. And if you can convince me that it makes sense, even if it means that I ruffle some feathers with my fellow MLB owners, which again, I think he was really sensitive to, then, I think he was willing to do that because his ultimate priority was to win in San Diego. And I think that that's something that I will always remember and appreciate about him.
I know people will scoff at Scott Boras sometimes in his quotes, what he'll say, but it may have been Elvin Gonzalez of ESPN who wrote about how, and this is after Peter died, that he said he had been on a call or texting Peter shortly before he died. And he was pretty adamant that Juan Soto was not going to be traded because Peter expected to live. I know we're reading about an infection that happened. He was compromised, a cancer survivor. He did not expect to lose his life at this age. He had years ahead, right? He was going to be alive for the parade, for the baseball gods to smile upon San Diego. And Boras, he's adamant. We had been texting and we had the conversation at the time when he was traded, and I actually wanted to ask this to Juan Soto when he came back to San Diego with the Yankees and he had that presser. Would that have happened if Peter had lived? Was that going to happen?
We'll never know, but I mean, I don't think so. I don't, and again, this isn't to suggest that they did a bad job. They did a great job with the trade. I mean, I think everybody got out of that trade everything they could, but I mean, it is ingrained in my mind forever that AJ Preller did not want to trade him.
No, 100%.
And
he coveted him.
And if he didn't want to do it, then he probably figured, that he wasn't going to have to do it. Again, I know I'm cherry picking some of the stuff that's been written, but certain things always just like indelibly burn into my brain. And I remember one of those AC newsletters where he was essentially forced into doing it. And, again, he crushed it. I mean, absolutely, crushed it given the hand that he was dealt. And, maybe in a way that interesting picture, and maybe in a way, maybe it was a good thing, right? Like maybe it was a net positive. I don't know, but I don't know. I really do. I just object to people constantly trying to tell you like, oh yeah, like this was this was always the way it was going to go, and it's like you just don't know that. Like you just don't know that. before 2020, let's see, what are we, 25, 24, 23. So before 23, I mean, there was an idea that the Padres really weren't going to spend a lot of money that offseason. They were only going to spend like $10 million, and they went out and they spent like $300 million or something like that. He was open to change. Peter was never like, he wasn't Ron Fowler. Ron Fowler's like, this is the budget, right? Remember what Ron's nickname was from people that we knew who worked there? He's the budget hawk.
Okay. Yes.
Like it was like he's the budget hawk, and when he sends a budget, like good luck, man. You're not going to get him off that.
Yeah.
And Peter was not the budget hawk. He's like, this is where we're operating. This is where we want to operate. But if you came to him with an idea and a proposal, and this is why he and Preller actually were pretty good, because like they would be willing to try things and different concepts and different kind of crazy trades and spending money in maximizing minor leagues and international stuff so that you create assets, like and then he had an owner who was kind of kooky enough to go with him, and Preller found a guy who was willing to believe in some of the stuff. I'm sure he said no a million times. Mm-hmm. I promise you that Peter didn't just say yes all the time the way we made it sound, but
by the way, real quick, I would love to know, that's a new chapter, a new video, right? I want to know one day the trades. I want AJ to go ahead and tell us the trades that he said no to, the trades and the free agency signings that Peter said no to.
Yeah, AJ, that's too much, man. AJ, like I just, I'm dying here. Like these other owners, they want to murder me every single time I go into one of these owner meetings, man. Mm-hmm. You're killing me here. Mm-hmm. But, I think he just always had that, he was always open-minded to what is it going to take? We're not doing this for no reason. Like we're doing this for a specific purpose, to try to win a championship.
Yeah.
And, that was his motivation, and that motivation sort of trumped everything else that was going on with him. And, that's what made him so beloved. That's what makes you realize, the value of ownership and why it matters. And, back to the stuff at hand, the more topical stuff. I mean, that's why it's hard to not view Sheila as the extension of Peter, even more so than his own blood, just because we never knew who any of those people were. And there are a lot of people who don't either.
So right now, Darren, who's calling the shots? Who right now? And by the way, I don't envy a single person in the Padres PR department. I was half waiting to find out like who's going to go ahead and retweet whose comment, and is there going to be a press release? I don't envy anybody there that has to deal with this right now. But if there's a fan fest, well, there is a fan fest. It's not going to be rained out. Hopefully, when there's fan fest, who's speaking? Are we going to see when it's spring training? When spring training rolls around, Darren, and we're all there with our microphones and our cell phones or whatnot. Are we asking questions to Eric Katsenda and Eric Grupner again about payroll? Or are we talking to brothers 2, 3, 4, and 5? I mean, who's going to be asking, hey, listen, guys, it's January 8th, and what's happening with Jurickson Profar? Forget Roki Sasaki. What's happening with the guy with lesser money? Who right now is calling the shots on to why nothing is happening?
I would guess it's still Eric Katsenda, unless I've missed something. I'm not on the emails anymore, so maybe he said, thank you, like that was enough. And I give him credit. I know he became a bit of a meme on social media, right? Like the cut spenda and all that sort of stuff. But he's trying to do one of his best friends a solid. He didn't. I don't think he really enjoyed being the control person. I'm sure it came with a lot of benefits. Hey, you got to hang out in the owner suite, and you got to go to nice restaurants. I would see him downtown and all that sort of stuff. So, I'm sure it wasn't all bad, but I think getting lit on fire every day and on social media was probably not something that he thought came with the territory when he was trying to do his friend and business partner a solid here. But I would imagine that he's probably still the person in place, at least until there's a vote. And I suspect that on some level, is MLB involved? Is Eric Grupner, I'm sure. What's his role in all of this? Mm-hmm. That's an interesting guy. Yep. Is that a guy that's long for this place? I'm not sure. You hear some whispers from time to time that
Governor?
maybe Governor of California. Yeah.
Yes, I've
You
heard
want
that
that
a couple.
You want that job today?
Oof, today? No.
Absolutely not. But you hear his name tossed out there for other gigs and in other leagues.
Yeah.
I think that will be an interesting one to pay attention to over the next couple of months. Is Eric Grupner going to see this thing through for the next couple of months or the next couple of years, or does he see an opportunity? I've heard I'm sure you've probably heard it, right? I have no repercussions here. They're not going to pull my credential, but I've heard that he's either been interested in an NFL job or NFL jobs, or that NFL teams have been interested in him. And
wait, like the next, oh, come on, help me out here.
Next coach of the Raiders?
Garfinkel?
Right.
Like the next Tom, Garfinkel was what, the CEO here? Was he? Yeah, CEO. And now he's the CEO of the Dolphins. So are you saying that he wants that?
Mark,
I heard?
do you remember when Eric Grupner got here?
What?
Do you remember who was the owner who brought him into the mix?
When Eric Grupner got here, it had to have been, don't tell me John Morris.
Jeff
No, not John Morris. I'm sorry. The one after that. Oh God.
Yeah. It was Morad and Tom Garfinkel. And it was that crew. He's been here a long time.
Yeah,
and listen, Eric Grupner's always been good to me. So, this isn't me going after somebody or trying to be petty with somebody. He's, always been social and whatever, but that's not the point. The point is that a guy like that, he's, and he probably has a resume that would be attractive as a CEO for an NFL team, right? Pecco's beautiful, but I think I'm very curious to see what it is that happens with him over the next couple of months. Just see, it's not the place where he started, and he's figured out a way to adapt between different owners and different. I'm just kind of curious to see where that goes over the next couple of months. It's been, he hasn't told me that he's interviewed for an NFL gig, but I've heard those whispers. I'm sure I'm not alone.
I heard MLB commissioner.
I think he's got set on something higher than being the longtime Padres CEO.
Okay. What would that come?
And I think he does have a little piece of ownership.
Okay.
I think that's out there publicly. I think he's got a little piece of that, but depending on which way the wind is going to blow in this situation. That's to your earlier point. We might just be at the thin side of the wedge in all of this, in that we don't even know what it is that's going to happen over the next couple of months. So, maybe maybe he views it that way. He's like, I don't know, this thing's going to get tied up in court. And, last time we had a Padre owner tied up in court, you and I lived through that.
Oh, that was
that wasn't great. And, that set into motion the whole John Moore's selling the Jeff Morad, which was this weird fucking, what are we doing here? Who are these people? What? They don't have the money to buy it. And what a mess, and you would just really, really hate to think that we're heading down that road for the second time in a relatively short amount of time.
I hope not. Hey, Darren, I know that you have a lot. You have a dry January event to get to.
Yes, I have a happy hour, 5:00.
You have a dry January happy hour to get to. Listen, you and I have not done this in a long, long time. Is there anything more you want to say on this situation? I know that's what most people really, really want to hear, because I know there's a station that really can't address this stuff, and there's not too many. Listen, there's a lot we don't know yet. But anything else you want to get out while you have this? We have time on the Padres specifically.
On this specifically,
yeah.
I don't really have any predictions on it, just because, like I said, I've not seen any of the legal documents, and I think that, I think there's probably a lot of people who work there who are wondering the same thing. They're like, what does this mean for me? How does this end? And, that's probably a very uncomfortable feeling, because again, you and I lived through this.
Yeah.
I remember people who are like, I don't know what the future is with the Padres, so I'm going to go take a job with the Portland Trailblazers, right? Or I'm going to go take a job with, such and such a franchise, and go, people started going, hey, I got to do what's best for me, for my family. And that's what the uncertainty, unfortunately, creates in the situation. It'd be nice if the brothers Seidlers that are out there commenting publicly followed through and I don't know. you're just asking me to like believe that they really care about winning a championship in San Diego. And I'm not convinced. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. Like, who are you? But I know that Sheila was very much into that. And, I think that, I don't know, man.
Peter so down to earth?
I just don't think any of it's good. That's the thing.
No, it's not.
I don't think any of this is good, but I am open to being wrong.
Right. That's one thing that made Peter so beloved. He'd walk around Petco Park. He'd walk everywhere, up and down, just meeting different people, fans, whatnot. And you'd be like, what? That's the owner of the Padres, right? And you knew how much he loved it. Loved it. He wasn't here to go ahead. It wasn't about making the money. And by the way, you're making money when you're in this business, right? That's why you're in this. But he was a passionate, nerdy fan. And Sheila has some of that. And people want that from their owners.
And I think he also had great perspective, right? Like real life perspective, not the closed off ecosystem of sports talk radio. But, you'd say something to Peter like, that was a disaster of a month, or like, that was what a terrible, and he'd be like, what a catastrophe is, and I always appreciated that like he could at least zoom the lens out on real life stuff. If Peter were alive today, he'd be like, we'll get through this. Let's focus on people up in Los Angeles. And, homes are burning all across Southern California. Like, this is a disaster, right? Like, and he's right. And like, we all understand, like, the perspective stuff sometimes could be, it could be a lot. But, I did always like, I did appreciate how he could be disarming in situations like that. And, maybe that's an important lesson to always take in life. I mean, that's why Peter's passing was such a loss, not just because of getting free agents, not just because of trying to track down the Dodgers, but it was a loss because you really felt like, you had somebody who was a true patriarch of not just a club, a sports team, but also a city. I mean, there's a reason why he was like the San Diego person of the year, right? I mean, it wasn't the executive of the year. He was like the person of the year in San Diego for all the good that he did here. And that's why it still feels like it's such a massive loss.
It's a huge loss. It's the biggest loss we've had. It's a huge loss. It felt he's like an irreplaceable human being. And to see this happening, I can't even imagine what he would have thought of this right now.
It makes you sick because this would have, it just goes against everything that he stands for.
Yeah.
Just goes against everything that he would have stood for, again, and not smart enough to know, which side is more to blame, right? There are always just three sides to the story. There's this side, there's that side, and there's probably this, the truth. But I just know what I know, and I know how I've seen things, and I need to be convinced before I just automatically go, well, that's the way it's got to be.
Yep. Darren, miss seeing you.
Do you?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I see. Yeah, I do.
What's going on in PB? What's new and exciting in Pacific Beach these days?
It's really, really windy today. August learned how to ride a bike. What's happening in PB? It's kind of quiet. It's good. It's good here. Yeah, it's decent. I'm busy. Trying to stay busy.
NFL playoffs?
What's that?
You excited for the NFL playoffs?
Not really. Not really. And the reason why I'm not.
I learned today that there's an NFL playoff game on Monday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's the Rams. It's the Rams and our Vikings. Your Vikings, your Minnesota Vikings. What's that? They may have to move that game. That was supposed to be in Los Angeles. That would be, our guy Kevin O'Connell reuniting with Sean McVay. He was his former OC with the Rams. And I was thinking about that today. Do you remember when they had to move the Chargers game because of the wildfires in San Diego? That it was supposed to be Junior Seau when he was with the Dolphins, right? It was going to be his first return back in San Diego, and they had to move that game to Arizona because they used Jack Murphy Stadium, Qualcomm, as a site for the victims of whose homes burned down. So that they may have to move that. I would be excited, except I think the Rams are going to win that game. And as magnificent as Kevin O'Connell's season has been, I think right now, man, the Rams defense is so good, good, and they have the better quarterback.
Well, I will trust you.
Yes. Are you excited?
No.
You excited for SDFC? Let me ask you this, because I went there when they unveiled their their game day jersey or whatnot. I actually went to that store in that's the old in Mission Valley to take a look.
Yeah,
I thought it was fine.
Right?
What's that?
By the Tilted Kilt?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Tilted Kilt.
Yeah.
One of many sports bars that has completely disappeared forever.
Yeah. Marty, your hair looks nice today. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you. Oh, by the way, real quick. Oh, here's Emo Brown. Oh, your boy. I want to shout somebody out before I forget. I want to shout out our guy, Bernie Wilson. I know that he just retired from the Associated Press. And I will tell you this, man, that Bernie Wilson was one of a kind. If the Seidler brothers ever have a press conference, if they're at FanFest, you want Bernie Wilson in there asking those questions. You want that guy. He's been awesome. He's really helped me out a lot all the years. Charger Park, Padres, Aztecs, whatnot. But Bernie Wilson is one of a kind. He's one of a kind in every situation. And depending on what I do in this next year, a press box, a dugout, a clubhouse, it'll never, ever be the same. Locker rooms. So good for you, Bernie. Yeah. Get some beers one of these days.
I got to admit, like a lot of you people who a lot of you people, hey, what's up, J-Riff? A lot of you people who tweet during these games from the press box at Petco Park, your tweets are absolutely fucking worthless. Bernie's at least had some.
Who are you talking? Are you talking to AC?
I'm just saying.
The roof was open or closed.
And your lives up there telling us what happened as if we weren't all watching it. But Bernie's had this special little sizzle and spice to them that nobody else quite had. And I will forever miss the sarcasm from Bernie coming out of the press box, because it was certainly, it would break up the monotony of you all tweeting out the same exact thing at the same exact time.
Worthless. Who's the worst tweeter? Go ahead. Go rat somebody out. Listen, you don't give an F. I can't curse like I want to because my mom watches these shows. And August is here. What's that?
Sorry about that. I did not know the rules.
No. You can. No. I meant I would do it right now, except August isn't here. He fell asleep watching Star Wars. So
okay. I mean, again, they're all pretty terrible.
Was I
not a lot of insight into that? not a lot of insight into. Wow.
Oh my God! OMG, Jackson Merrill! Exclamation!
Yeah, we get it. I know the guy's amazing.
Okay, Darren, I know you have to go soon. So what? This has been great. We should do this more. I hope we do this more often. I mean, I know that you and I are. Oh man, how we consume media, sports news has changed forever. I actually had Joe Musgrove on a chat a couple weeks ago when he was in his car with his now fiance on his way to Arizona to go do. Was it Sean Manaya's wedding? He was going somewhere anyways. And I asked him, like, how do you consume your sports news? And I think he said in order, was it Instagram? No. Reddit. He said Reddit was first. Huh. He said Reddit, Insta. And I forgot what number 3 was, but it wasn't radio. It wasn't radio. And there's a couple people that he follows. Like, I just think like things are changing, so it's kind of fun it's fun to do it in this format,
But who did consume lots of sports news from radio was Joe Musgrove's dad, which always made me feel great when Joe would remind us that his dad was a fan of our radio shows all throughout the years. I always appreciated that. Like, wow, okay, cool, great, love that.
Real quick. So one of the last games, playoff games, the family in the tunnels, the families are all there. I was walking out, and this is actually shortly after. This is after he and Joe Musgrove's dad stopped me. I had met him before, and he said, "Hey, I've listened to you and Darren forever. Tell Darren he's the best, and I miss him." So, although Joe Musgrove may not listen to sports radio, and he gets it from Reddit, which I still don't quite get. His father does. So Darren, you've got a bunch of dads out there who miss you.
I literally just said that.
I know that. I'm telling you that.
Oh, okay. I thought we were like doing like right back in our old habit of like
not listening.
You're just banging away on a keyboard.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to add all these comments onto. I'm trying to add all the. Hey, do you have any wine recs for?
Any wine recs?
Yeah.
I mean, my wife would murder me if I didn't recommend some of her wines, but yeah, I mean, I'm actually going up to wine country at the end of the month, going up to Sonoma. So
nice.
Yeah. I mean, can never go wrong with some Central Coast Brewer Clifton or some Northern California Hartford Court. So, there's lots of them. I'm more than happy to share my wife's portfolio with everybody else.
I think you should share some next time you're in PB, man. Drop some off. By the way, real quick, here's the PB.
I have a better one. Can I give a different one? Because I haven't done a ton of traveling since we've been off.
Okay.
I did go to Tequila though. I did go to the city of Tequila, and so I will give you a couple of recommendations, tequila recommendations instead. There's a tequila company called El Tequileno. It's one of the oldest tequilas. It's not as well known north of the border as it is in Mexico, but El Tequileno, and we also toured Fortaleza, which was absolutely an incredible place. If anybody ever plans a trip and goes to Tequila, I don't get anything for this mostly, but I would recommend either one of those places. So I've been drinking some Fortaleza and I've been drinking some El Tequileno. So those are two things that I'm like, whoa, what a just an eye-opening experience. Like no preserve. I learned so much about tequila when we were there. It was great. So I would be more than happy to recommend some of that stuff.
Yeah.
What about you? What are you recommending these days? What's new and exciting in PB?
Okay, real quick. This is what's new. Tajima opened up right next to Rockies. Tajima. It's so good.
I didn't know how you pronounced that all these years.
Tajima. They just opened. It's really, and they did the decor is fantastic. More of a beachy sort of feel to it. The new ramen, yes, they have a couple of rice dishes, but the ramen, gyoza, karage, things like that. The very, very, very simple, basic stuff. So yeah, it's open, but long waits, man. Like an hour and a half last time. It's crazy.
Really?
So, yeah, it's dude. People in PB. We're ready for some more bars and restaurants. Let's go. It makes me sad. My favorite ones have closed down.
I know. We could use some down here in Imperial Beach as well. It's been a little bit of a slower evolution than I was hoping for when we first moved here. Yeah. What do you got?
Okay, I'm good. Okay.
All right.
I'm good. I'm not frozen. All right. I was frozen. Yeah, I'm good. I'm sorry.
What's up with your Wi-Fi?
Oh man. I think it's your Wi-Fi. I'm good.
Is it my Wi-Fi?
All right, Darren. Well, it's your Wi-Fi. Yeah, it's always your fault. By the way, if you can look behind me, that is the Section 51 that you salvaged for me from Qualcomm Stadium when they tore it down. Section 51, which has significance for two reasons. Number one, 51, Trevor Hoffman. That's right field. That's where I sat. I spent half my life, Section 51, row 11, seat wherever. Because back then it was open seating for GA, which was the best.
Oh,
yeah.
I like it. And now it's right in front of a Sugar Bowl. What is that?
No, that is an Epcot Center plant bowl, and that is my Space Mountain coffee mug.
That's a coffee mug?
Yes.
Yeah. That's one of the best gifts I think I've ever given in my life.
Yeah, I think it really is. I don't even know how you got that. Fantastic.
I'll never tell. I will never tell. I won't. How about the college football playoffs? You don't have any predictions?
I don't, Darren.
You know who's playing?
There's Ohio State.
And?
Much to my horror. Not Oregon. Texas.
Yeah. And then there's the Notre Dame Penn State game, which it's like rooting for Carl DeMaio and Bob Filner. Who do you pick?
Bob Filner. Oh goodness.
Yeah.
Wow, we've been a mess for a long time, haven't we?
Probably too long.
You miss it?
I don't know. I mean, I sort of think that's, with doing stuff like this, I did Kaplan show a couple of weeks ago.
Like New Year's Day you did it or something like that, right?
I don't think it was New Year's Day. It was before Christmas because I was on my way to go pick my in-laws up at the airport, which is a fucking nightmare. But I don't, I just like seeing the way different things work. I mean, I don't miss, I miss doing the fun stuff. I don't want to sound like, I know everybody's got, gigs and like, it's all trade-off, right? Like you do the things that you have to do because it lets you do the things that you want to do. But, in this business, when it just stops being fun, then, I think then that's not not what I missed. And, I think it probably got to a point where it was just the scales were tipping in the wrong direction where it just wasn't as fun.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just can't help but think that there's a better way of doing it, but
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. Everybody says to do this sort of stuff, right? Like go do a YouTube show. I'm like, well, that presents challenges. And then it's, well, what about doing a podcast? And, you should do a podcast and like, well, what platform works for you? Does Substack work for people? Does YouTube work for people? So then like you have to go through all of that sort of stuff. And ultimately none of this stuff matters unless you can figure out a way to monetize it.
Mm-hmm.
I think, that's the real challenge of going independent. But I also think, to your point from a while ago, I think going independent is probably the preferred route.
Yeah.
I missed the stuff that was fun. I missed the part that even if it wasn't fun, it felt important.
Community.
And, yeah.
You want a show that addresses community and sports and knowing and someone that understanding your market. Like it's important when someone is telling you what you need to.
I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying. I think knowing your market's important. And I think
this isn't even necessarily. I just think it's in corporate America. I think that there are challenges in working in a corporate world as it relates to media that it's just never quite been like this. So, it's hard, it's a really, really hard thing to navigate your way through because ultimately at the end of the day, like, you're just an employee number, and that's how you're mostly viewed. But like, I would like to do something again that mattered. I'd like to do something again that was fun. I'd like to do something that was that resonated with people. I've seen a lot of the criticism over the last couple of days about access, right? Like people are talking about access, who can say what and who, doesn't want to say, who's worried about pissing somebody off. You mentioned like the flagship. I actually felt for the people who work on the flagship because of the Padres I'm talking about. Like I'm sure they were told, hey, we just can't. And, it just puts you in a terrible, terrible spot. But I do really, really like the idea of being able to just do whatever the F you want. And, I don't have a lot of complaints about that. I don't ever feel like I don't ever feel like we were really, really reprimanded for stuff that, sometimes it's like, hey, can we be smart? Like we have a sales staff that's trying to sell this and you guys are trashing the product. Like, but, it was never to the point where like, I feel very fortunate that we were never like muted. We were never really neutered that way. But, I do like the idea, the concept of just being completely free to just say and speak however you want to speak and, just be and just open and honest. Like, I think there's something that's very alluring to me about being a, 100% audience supported. Right. I think there's something that's exciting about that, but getting from here to there is the challenge, and that's what the last couple of months have been about. And I think that's probably what the next couple of weeks will be about. I don't think
figuring out the structure and platform. No, I agree. I think, listen, I purposely past couple of months when you and I, we've checked in, from time to time. I don't think we've talked about what's your plan going to be. Hey, what do you think about this? Do you miss radio? Do you, opportunity? We haven't talked about that, but I'll tell you this. I hope you do something because I think you are an important voice in this market. When we used to have these weekly meetings or monthly meetings with different people, in upper management. And some of it was like, get to know you, why should someone listen to Darren's show? Why do they care? Because when something big happens, important, they would tune in to Darren Smith. Because I think the importance of being a great radio host isn't to have your hot take or, hey, you take this, I'll take this, and we're going to be goofy. When something big happens, relocation, death, massive trade, who do people turn to? And it's always been you. And I think that's kind of been, and I'm not throwing slide at whoever's on the air right now, but I think that's been missing in this market. And I think it's important that you return. I think knowing your market, you can't just it's not easy to pick up right now and go somewhere else because it takes time to go ahead and build up credibility. You need to know your market. You need to know sports teams and people, and you know this market. So I hope you do something.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, just dust me off anytime something important happens,
Yeah, I know.
Somebody go get Will Holder to go ride by his house in Imperial Beach and ring his doorbell and tell him something happened. I mean, again, we'll see. I mean, guess what? Like haven't done a show since end of June, and like the sun comes up every day, and people go about their lives, and the world keeps spinning. So I don't know. Like I said, I just want the next thing to be much more a version of what it is that I want to do than what it is that somebody else wants me to do. Does that make sense?
I think Spliff McGriff has it correct. Darren, wait. That's the wrong one. Where's Spliff McGriff? Where are you? Here we go. Do a weekly roundtable with local figures and drink wine.
I thought about that concept. I actually have a name for that.
Okay. Is it the Talking Palm Trees with Scott Lewis? Is that what it's called?
No. Yeah, I mean, again, I appreciate the sentiment. I do. And, I'm never, I don't know. I just always get uncomfortable with that sort of stuff, but I do appreciate it. And, listen, I mean, I've like been away from social media for a reason. There's a reason why I only post videos of me riding bicycles up and down the Silver Strand, just to let people know I'm alive.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm still here, but it takes a little time. I mean, I was burnt out. Like it wasn't just like there was a lot of burnout going on.
Yeah,
from personal stuff and professional stuff, and
I get it.
There was a lot more that was building up to like I need a break, and I've taken a break, and I feel like my head's pretty clear, and we'll see what's gonna happen next.
Good. You mentioned you've taken a break from social media, but if you want to go ahead and hit Darren up and he may or may not respond, I put it out there. You're on Blue Sky. Is it Blue Sky? Is it Blue Sky or Blue Ski? It's Blue Sky, correct?
Sky, yeah.
Blue Sky. You're on Twitter sometimes. Insta. No? Should I take it off?
Twitter. No, you can leave it, but that app.
Oh, it's got
it's even worse than I remember it being. And like,
okay.
This was years ago saying this app is it's objectively a terrible app.
It's horrible, but I'm telling you right now, go ahead and scoff at me right now. I'm telling you right now, if you want peace, because Instagram, even in the comments, and they're terrible. Threads. I'm telling you, people are still happy on Threads. I'm going to push it one more time. Catch you on Threads, Darren.
But then I gotta, support this coward, who's going with his tail between his legs.
Oh, him. Never mind. Forget it.
Up and take it to Austin. Like, I mean, it's not even the politics of that. It's just like the complete transparency of the guy who's a complete coward. I don't know. All right. Marty, good to see you.
Good to see you. Enjoy your dry January happy hour.
Yeah. I don't do that shit. I'm sorry. I don't participate in that.
Yeah, I thought you were being serious.
I did damp February last year, and it had almost no effect whatsoever.
You did?
Any better. I didn't lose any weight. It was a waste of time.
Real quick, I know we have a ton of listeners out there, and I've seen some of your comments, and I put some of them up there. I tried to, but no, we have not addressed why things didn't work out at the radio station. Maybe one day we will, but it just didn't. But
it's two situations.
They are completely different.
I can sum mine up in a couple of sentences. My contract was up at the end of July, and so one way or the other, like I was moving on. So.
Okay, I'll do mine. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm great. Darren, see you soon. Next time we'll do it together.
Okay.
Maybe some cocktails. We'll invite some people. Maybe we'll invite Dennis, AJ Caswell when he's out of hibernation. Talk some Padres. Do a roundtable. What do you think, Bernie? Just invite random people. I want to steal the Dan Le Batard idea that he did on Zoom a couple years ago when they first came back as a show, and we just invite random people to join us, like text a buddy. Just that would be fun. We should do that. Yeah, do happy hour. Let's go.
I like it.
All right.
I like it. I'm available. So
Okay,
thank
good.
you, everybody. And let me just say
Thanks,
also,
everybody.
and in case you haven't heard me say it just before, I just do want to say thank you to everybody for the support for months. So I saw it, and there's some reasons, legal or otherwise, that not everything, but I saw it all, and it was greatly appreciated, and I can tell you categorically it helps. It really, really helped, as much as I feel like I mentally needed to cool my jets for a while. I saw all the nice things that were said, and I really, from colleagues and from people that just have been with the show since day number one, since the Philly Billy days, it was all greatly appreciated, and I cannot tell you how much it helped. So thank you all very much. And with that, goodbye.
Peace out.